The two UDL assignments that I want to go over are from my screencast and the s'more I did. So to get in a little bit more detail before I play the screencast video, it was from weeks 5 and 6, and we had to read an article about from UDL Now, and so I just did a little presentation about that. Hi, my name is Lauren Donnett, and this is my screencast for weeks 5 to 6. My learning objective was scholars will be able to recognize similarities and differences from the past and compare it to what is present through Google Images, Google searches, or commenting with a minimum of 10 examples. And that was in the History Social Science Standards, Grade 1, Standard 4, Substandard 3. So the evaluation part allows for students to self-reflect and allows for teachers to evaluate their students through formal assessments and informal assessments. My learning objective connects to the evaluation part. Because the teacher is able to evaluate how much information the student retained by the students getting asked questions about similarities and differences. You can see in this picture, a lot of the students are self-reflecting. Like, am I learning what is the best way for me? What are my strengths and weaknesses? How am I doing? The students are trying to figure out if they are learning the material in the way their teacher wants them to. And then the teacher can evaluate what they understood and what they didn't understand. The students are then trying to self-reflect, like I said, and try to figure out which parts of the lesson they need to recap of. The reading You Teach, Teacher, and Student Evaluate allowed me to visualize how the students would be evaluated. Before the reading, I never knew how to allow for the evaluation to be for both the students and the teachers. I always thought it'd be more focused around the formal assessments of the students rather than the teachers also. After the reading, I knew how to incorporate both students and teachers and know which parts I do not need to be in the lesson. In the article in the UDL Now, a quote that stood out to me is, the UDL guidelines remind teachers to provide options for recruiting interest and note the importance of optimizing individual choice and autonomy. I thought this quote was critical to my understanding of the process because it allowed me as a future teacher to think of the UDL guidelines in the eyes of the student. Each student has different learning styles, and having individual choice allows for students to remember all the material on their own, which is very important. So the evaluation, obviously from this video, is a big part of the lesson plan. This section lets the teacher know how much the students are understanding. If there was never an evaluation for the lesson, then how do you really know how much the students are understanding and remembering? If a student is not self-reflecting, then more practice needs to be done. You want the student to understand the material even if you ask a question a different way. If the student understood the lesson, then they should be able to answer the question fully. One thing the article was able to teach me was how the evaluation is not always at the end of the lesson. Like how you heard, instead is integrated into each part of the lesson and not just its own section. That is why there are formal and informal evaluations to see if they are understanding the material in separate parts and all together. Now, if you look to the right, you can see this s'more I did. So this is the second UDL assignment that I'm going to be presenting to you. And so for this assignment, we were just supposed to set up the classroom. So when I started to set up the classroom, I was fond of the idea. Before you start teaching, it's important to create an environment, and that's what I wanted to do. So on the s'more, it says, as a teacher, it's important to create a classroom where good and positive behavior is encouraged and to have an inclusive classroom. Promoting positive behavior is key to having an effective learning environment. If the classroom is noisy and the students are acting out, then no learning is taking place. It is important to enforce rules for your classroom to make sure the students understand the expectations. Also, having an inclusive classroom allows for the students to feel heard. In inclusive classrooms, the teachers support diverse and cultural and social needs of the students. So now you can see here that you're wanting to create an environment for instruction. So you're having more inclusion and including the students in decision making. So now if we scroll down a little bit, we can see a couple of different pictures of different students' school behavior. So there are different scenarios that can happen depending on the environment of the classroom. So if the students are acting out, then above is the image of students acting out in the classroom. You can see that there is no learning taking place and the teacher has lost control. The students are throwing desks, throwing everything. There's no system or anything. And then if you go a little bit over here, you can see the students behaving. So above is an image of students behaving in the classroom. The teacher has promoted positive behavior, which is shown through the students raising their hands to answer the questions. They want to show respect to the teacher. So how do they do that? By raising their hand. Next, if we scroll down a little bit, we can see developing the content for instruction. So as teachers, it is important to plan lessons that include the diverse and inclusive classrooms. The content of these lessons must follow the state standards. If the student is not ready for the next standard, then the teacher needs to focus on what they need to work on together. The teacher can also focus on learning strategies to work with students with disabilities and diverse needs. When planning lessons as teachers, we need to always be thinking of universal design for learning, cultural sustaining pedagogies, and social justice in education. Before moving on, we need to evaluate the students to see if they are understanding the material, making sure that they are getting the best education that they need. And finally, we come to bringing collaboration in the classroom for instruction. So working with groups can benefit both students and teachers. Throughout the use of technology, there are more opportunities for teachers to meet. They are able to meet from the comfort of their home, but still collaborate together. Teachers are also able to collab with parents or guardians of the student. If a student is not doing well in a certain area, then the teacher can collaborate with the parents to try and find new learning strategies for the student. So talking to other teachers and parents can really help you get when you need to brainstorm ideas and think of maybe new lessons or new activities that you can do with the students. And it's always important to collaborate with one another because it will benefit everyone in the end. Thank you very much.